Hey there, fish keepers. As requested, I'm going to be presenting a little bit more of a overview of my Celestial Pearl Danio continuous breeding setup. In this shot I'm just going to feed them their tetratropical granules, which I feed twice a day, but I follow the tetratropical granules with brine shrimp or microworms. So what it does is it really expands their stomachs, so while they're hungry they eat their dry food first and they get their fill of that, and then once they've already got a bit of food, they take the brine shrimp because they love brine shrimps. So it's a way to get your fish eating more than what they normally would. So I just put a little bit in there, and tetratropical granules, it's the one kind of food that Celestial Pearl Danios seem to like. They don't really like flakes. They like some pellets, but it doesn't seem like all the fish in my tank will like the pellets, like just some will chase it around. But they seem to like the tetratropical granules quite a bit. Rarely do I've never seen it accumulate on the bottom. They seem to want it, eat it, and you can see by the heftiness of some of the females, it really gets them growing. And so there's I've taken out most of the little guys in this tank and put them into a different aquarium, just more because I sold a pile of Celestial Pearl Danios and I just wanted to get them growing a bit quicker. But if you look closely, and I'll show later on when I show the feed the brine shrimp, there's a pile of little guys in here. So once I took out the medium-sized one, I reduced the predation on them, and which allowed the little guys to expand their population. So we'll just enjoy watching this for a few minutes. The males are they're not really too territorial when the tetratropical granules are going on. That's pretty much just moving around, getting a few crumbles here and there, and I don't feed them a ton, so probably it isn't like there's a big swarm of tetratropical granules going down there, but they're getting the odd one there, and they're crushed up fine enough that babies of whatever size can get a little bit as well. So I fed the tetratropical granules, and it's about 15-20 minutes later, and they've basically eaten all the tetratropical granules. So I'm going to feed them some brine shrimp, and so they've already kind of got their bellies swollen a bit with tetratropical granules, and now we're just going to get them extra full with some brine shrimp. So basically what that does is just basically makes their stomachs bigger so they can eat more, so they grow quicker, and they generally have a better condition factor than if I just fed them something on its own. And the reason you can do that is just they love brine shrimp, so they'll always eat it even if they're pretty full. So they'll eat it to the very last morsel. They'll search all around the tank until it's basically completely gone. So they're going after that pretty good right now. And some of the, like, there's some little fry that are in there, and they'll get the odd brine shrimp too, but I do give them a little bit of Sera micro, just so the ones that I can't take them all out of there, and I always want to kind of keep them back as a bit of reserve babies, so they get a little bit of food too. And as soon as they can get on brine shrimp, they do, because I feed the brine every second day, and mix and every other day with microworms too. So they're getting a lot of live foods. But I'll just take a little bit closer look in there, because I had some questions about exactly what this tank entails. So you can see in here, it's got a foreground of crypt parva. In the background, in a lot of different parts, there is subwassertang and crypt lutea. There's a bit of pennywort in there, not very much anymore. and a bit of boost for a bit of color, and some wood, but mostly what you see where the fry, they're hatched out mostly in the subwester tank, right in the center there where there's a bit of current that comes over. You can see the leaves moving in the back. It goes right across the subwester tank there, and I see the CPDs spawning there really often. So their eggs will kind of go down into the subwester tank and then distribute throughout the tank. I'm sure that lots get eaten, but we'll just go over to one of the sides here, and you can see that right up to the edge is a subwester tank. So I think what happens is the fry are maybe born down in this bottom part here, and they kind of go up as sliders along the top here and then hit the crypt lutea and make their way to the surface. And once they get up to the surface, it seems like the adult CPDs, they don't go up there very much for one, and they basically leave the little guys alone. So there's actually quite a few little guys in here. I don't know if we'll be able to see them, but we should. They're right in along through here. Oh yeah, there's some little tiny guys. I see a little bit of movement in there. But I counted them the other day. There's about 20 of them. So it's really hard to get this thing to focus on some of the small things that are in there. But the other side is basically the same thing. There's subwester tank in the back there. It's on top of a rock, so it gets higher, it gets towards the light. And they basically do the same thing back there too, is go up the subwester tank and then hit the crypts and kind of slide along the crypts until they're up at the top. And then that top part there, there's just never very many fish up in that part of it. They're mostly, the adults are mostly hanging out in the middle of the tank and kind of sparring for breeding, and they just basically leave the little guys alone. Plus they're really well fed, and I think that makes a really big difference. So you can see it's all pretty thick in there. And this tank, there's just basically, you can't even see it, but there's actually, I'll go over to the top here. It's actually just an aqua clear on here, and then I've got a sponge over the intake, and you can't even see it because it's pretty thick, right? So lots of places to hide. And then just a sand substrate, a few snails in there, and they reproduce really well. And lights on for 15 hours a day, which might help because I can always see. But that's basically all my tanks because they're mostly growing shrimp, so I keep my lights on for quite a while. And they're all on timers. So this one just happened to go on to 15 hours a day. The light is just a cheap no-name light, but it seems to have a decent spectrum. It's keeping the boost alive, and that's about it. It's not really growing, but it's keeping it alive. It grows a little bit, I guess, but not much. There's no CO2 on it or anything, and no additives to this tank. So that's my CPD continuous breeding setup. Happy fish keeping!